Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Thank you for joining me. I can't believe I'm saying this. Hope your holiday season is going well so far. The classic overindulging, over and done with for a little bit, maybe until New Year's Eve, or maybe beyond for all I know. I'm trying to stay a little bit more circumspect about my indulgences, simply so that I can go hunting more. How's that for an incentive? Anyway, hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and you should be thankful for something, I'm sure. So just harken back to that for a moment. Good. I'm glad to hear it. And on top of all of that, hunting season continues apace, as they say. We're going to talk a lot about that sort of stuff, including, well, places to go when you're sick and freaking tired of the snow. And a whole bunch of hacks that I've picked up over the years, want to share with you from pro guides, lodge owners, and other great folks. So stick around for all of that. We're coming to you from the Cabela's podcast studio. We'll also cover another way to handle your dog's paw problems. I know I've obsessed about this for a while, but it keeps coming up this time of year. So I'm going to help you out and save you a few bucks there. And the reader poll this week on how your season is going. Plus, of course, your weekend reports and some great inspiration from that. So don't go away. In fact, stay right here right now. Sage and Breaker Gun Care products are crafted at the highest caliber. They bring you the Upland Nation podcast. Some new things going on there. New products for you to take a look at. A parts tray if you do your own gunsmithing or even just your own gun cleaning. A new gun grease, and I've learned from Fred Bohm, the founder over there, that there are certain places where oil works and certain places where grease works. And then my favorite, leave it in the truck after every hunt, CLP, Clean Lube Protect. It works for all sorts of reasons. Learn more at sageandbreaker.com. And then, again, this time of year, it seems like everybody wants my dog energy bars. More wholesale orders than I've ever seen, and I've been doing this for about 3 years now. That is an indication of how well it must work. If you're interested in learning more about why, go to dogenergybar.com. All right, just about ready to start talking about, all the things important to you, but right now something important to me. Heading out tomorrow, in fact, for a trip with a friend who started out as a Facebook friend and then coincidentally gave a buddy a ride back to my truck on a hunt down in the way over there to the right and a little bit further south. So we all got acquainted a little bit better over a few tall, cold ones, and now we hunt once a season together and exchange single malts. Maybe you have a tradition like that. Maybe I'll do something about traditions down the road. And then come back, do the laundry, and head for Nevada. Another great place to go down along the border of Oregon where sometimes a year it gets a little crowded. Other times there's nobody there, and I'm hoping that'll be the case this time around. I'll have a full report real soon. It's winter in some places. The birds will be in different spots than the last time I was there, so let's see how it goes. All right, how did it go? Last weekend, Scott Mendenhall said he took his nephew and his puppy out, and his Labrador was teaching both of them. It looks like he had a good time. There's at least one rooster in the arms of that nephew. And there's the Labrador trying to get his own glory out of that picture as well. Congratulations to all of you. And thanks for making a new hunter, Scott. Joseph Key did the same thing, introduced a new hunter to the sport. And this new hunter's holding 2 ringnecks. So good job to both of you and to whatever dog did the heavy lifting on that one. Eric Doan says he was doing all yard work with his young short hair, good-looking short hair, lots of white. That's what we like out here in the desert because, there's a reason so many German dogs are named Sage out here, because when they hit a point, you can't tell the difference between them and the plant. We like a lot of white for that reason. It looks like Eric's got his wish in that regard. John Gallerini Now that's just bragging, John. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 ringnecks and a good looking setter alongside the woodpile there. So you got something to eat, you got something to keep you warm. Oh yeah, then you can light a fire too, but I meant the dog at your feet. Dave Vertefeuille, I think that's how I'm going to pronounce it. That's my music French. Gave the Labs and the Shorthairs the weekend off, but there's a big pile of Canada geese right there in front of them, and a whole bunch of guys in camo. Looks like you had fun anyway. And finally, Josh Glover says, unless the temp comes up a hair, Hare, get it? We'll be out chasing snowshoes for the time being. Him and his, it looks like his 15-inch Beagle, maybe something else, kind of hard to tell, but I'd bet that's what it is. And a bunch of snowshoe hares in their winter plumage on the tailgate. Good dog, good hunter, and boy, what a feast that is. Hassenpfeffer. Oh, a little bit jealous there, but I'll be out again soon. And in fact, that's the topic. That's the reason for this topic, snowbirding. As you may have heard, the SHOT Show has been canceled. That's the big industry trade show. 60,000 of us wandering 12 or 14 miles of aisles, looking at all the new stuff that all the manufacturers are bringing out, saying hello to old friends, making some new friends, learning something, and hopefully, bringing back some information for you as well. Unfortunately, not this year. All going to be online, and I'll let you know more about that as it comes together. But in the meanwhile, it gives me a hall pass for January, and I'm looking at places to go that are outside of the blue parts of the weather map up here in the northern latitudes above the 42nd parallel. So I thought I'd share some of that with you folks. If you are looking for some warmer destinations, no matter where you live, I might have some suggestions for you. You know, I do this kind of stuff on a regular basis at findbirdhuntingspots.com, and I've put a whole bunch of it together here. So instead of a little brief mention in our This Land is Your Land segment, let's jump right in. But don't call me a Scrooge. After Christmas, snow and plummeting temperatures are kind of a little bit old hat for me, and so, you know, since we moved up to this part of the country, we've thought, yeah, it'd be nice to go somewhere else when the snow flies, and maybe get a little bit more hunting in and at least stay thawed out. Well, most of the white stuff probably stays in the mountains where you live as well as here. Once in a while, it does get a little bit obnoxious. So let's jump right in. Snowbird has a couple meanings, you know, to quail hunters especially. We like to leave the winter behind, and that's a given. But when we are leaving, why not take a shotgun and a dog or two and leave the snow shovels and icy roads at home? The joy of most of these places is your better half will probably be glad to go with you. Pack your hunting boots and your sunglasses, maybe a swimsuit and some sunscreen, and head for, first off on the list, the People's Republic of California. I know it's weird, and you got to be careful about how you haul your firearms and your ammo and what kind of ammo you use these days, but don't let that scare you off. There is hunting all over California in the wintertime. The further south you go, the better. The further east you go, the better. But I've had a good time up and down the state, in the snow in the northern parts and in the deserts of the south and southern eastern parts. How about Barstow or Needles? Those are towns towards the edge of the Mojave National Preserve. Lots of Gambel's quail there. You'll have to work hard for them. You'll have to do your homework. Remember, you kill birds with boot leather, not with ammunition. And be a mensch, as they say in some quarters. If you find someone else already in a spot you like, find another spot. There's plenty of them there. Look for water sources and cover. You know, classic quail cover. Overstory without much understory so the birds can run around. Most of those Gamble's birds will head upslope after they're pressured. So you can't hang around a water hole. You have to go up from there and do your due diligence, if you will. Stretch your drive a bit. Keep your hunting happy. Headquarter at any of the Palm Springs area communities. Yeah, you're a couple hours from the Mojave Preserve, but you're right in the heart of all the cool stuff if you like that. Shopping in museums, lots of live music, and that Rat Pack vibe. I got some stories for you about that stuff. There's casinos, of course, golf and tennis of all sorts. A little bit farther drive, but it's probably a lot easier to convince your non-hunting spouse to go to Palm Springs than to Barstow or Needles. Hey, speaking of fun places to go and nightlife, Nevada is full of quail destinations. Yeah, and I'm going to focus most of this discussion on quail, mainly because that's kind of the bird I chase in the wintertime. So many of the others are either out of season or, well, they're way up there on the top of a hill that's got 8 feet of snow between you and them, and you can't even use the roads, let alone climb it. So anyway, Las Vegas, one of my favorite places, even when the SHOT Show is canceled, because there are Gamble's quail south of places like Caliente. That's a town near the Mormon Mountains, and the Mormon Mountains have lots of other quail spots in them. So pull out your map and start doing your homework. The Delamar Range can produce. The arroyos and slopes near the town of Searchlight, which is truly the middle of nowhere, but it's only 50 miles south of Las Vegas. And you can always shoot clay targets. There's a relatively new place called the Clark County Shooting Complex, and it is always worth a look. It's it's kind of state of the art, and as long as you're following all the rules, and they'll change between now and when you go, I can almost guarantee you. But they've got RV parking, they got trap skeet, 5 stands, sporting clays, and it's only 25 miles from the Las Vegas Strip. And FYI, according to the U.S. Weather Service, the chance of snow in Las Vegas in January, 0%. Let me just say that again for you Minnesotans. 0% snow. Yeah, that's why we hold the SHOT Show there. All right, the winter quail Valhalla. Everybody knows about Arizona, and deservedly so. Some incredible hunting down there. But on top of the 2 spots that we all know about, Patagonia and Sonoyta, and I'll get to those in a moment, you might want to look near the town of Kingman. Yeah, from the Route 66 song. Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Been to all of them, and they're still all pretty good places to go. Jonathan Odell is my key man there. He's a game biologist for Arizona Game and Fish. He says Unit 16A south of Kingman toward Phoenix is a top Gamble's quail producer. Another great quail and vacation hotspot, we're looking seriously at this one for our own trip, is Lake Havasu. All those washes, dusty washes and arroyos, which are dry riverbeds, are all places where the birds will gather first thing in the morning. They'll hang in that thick shrubbery and then venture out from there for food and water and then get back into the thick stuff. And while you're there, don't forget to take a look at the London Bridge. Yeah, it's in Arizona now. You'll probably be the only quail hunter, but if there are more, drive southeast. The Bill Williams River's west side offers excellent access as well, and it's not that far away. I mentioned Patagonia and Sonoyta, Mearns quail meccas, surrounded by national forest, lots of oaks, and serious hill walking, but if you're a chucker hunter, it'll be a walk in the park. Both of those towns kind of cater to the wintertime quail hunters, so there'll be plenty of lodging, RV parks. There's a whole bunch of pro guides, including some of the folks you've heard on this podcast. And a bad year in that part of the country means 1.25 inches of precipitation in January. Yeah, that's another reason to go. Steve Hopkins is one of the folks I talk with down there. He's at Arizona Quail Guides. he suggests you learn the lay of the land in kind of a, training wheel spot like Gardner Canyon. It's north of Sonoyta. And it gets a little bit of traffic, but it's one of those places that'll kind of clue you into what you really need to look for. And then you can start venturing out once you're there. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. We're talking about all those places where snowbirds might want to go. And, if you're in the Midwest or the eastern part of the country, hold on. We're just getting there. We're kind of moving geographically, but we will get to you in a moment. More of Arizona because it's so nice in the wintertime. Tombstone, besides being a great cowboy town and Old West legends galore. Nearby are scaled and Gambel's quail. And the ground is more level and the habitat is more like desert. So if that's what you're looking for instead of those hills around Sonoyta and Patagonia, head for Tombstone. Another patch, the Tonto Basin. It's near Roosevelt Lake. Much of that country is public land, national forest, mainly Tonto National Forest. Take a look at the stretch from the town of Globe to Pumpkin Center. Yeah, that's how they spell it out there. Quite a place, actually. Friendly folks. I did some time in Tucson back in the day, and we were there at the wrong time of year, but east of Tucson is the town of Wilcox, and you find some of the better scaled quail hunting in the country right there. We chased them around, but it was summertime. Yeah, I used to go to Arizona to work in the summertime outside. Keep the jokes to yourself. We used to see those scalies all over the place, even in the summer. And the joy of that is they're down at the lower elevations northwest of town near the Steel Hills and the Allen Flat areas. And if you're a country music fan, don't forget to stop in the Friends of Marty Robbins Museum. All right, one of my favorite quail destinations is a little bit further east, New Mexico. It's just a faint speck on most quail hunters' radar screens, but it's one of the few states that offers 4 different wild quail species: scalies, Gambels, northern bobwhite, and Mearns. I shot 3 of the 4. I've still not shot a Mearns quail, although I've had a chance to. Had some wonderful times out there. I was near the town of Deming in some of the BLM properties outside of town there, and there's a lot of that out in that country, so you can almost pull out a map and go to any of the yellow spots near Deming. You'll find Gambels in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest along the New Mexico-Arizona border and in the Pecos River Valley. Bobwhites can also be found in that valley and all the way along the Texas border. Any mixed brush grassland areas might have bobs. Mearns quail are all over Catron County, the Cibola National Forest, the San Andres Mountains, and the Sacramento Mountains. But the biggest concentration will be in the south central part of the state. You walk a lot. It could be hot. Your dog will work hard. Make sure you're cognizant of all the cactus spines that will end up in his feet and his legs. And then go have both the red and the green chili in any town. Everybody prides themselves on their own recipe, so you can make a tour of the state and compare. But speaking of chili, nobody makes it like they do in Texas, do they? And that's where we're going next, because yes, there is publicly accessible private land for you and me. Yeah, forego the private jet landing strips and the big dollar hunting operations unless you can afford one, and then let me know when you're headed there and send your jet over to pick me up first. But for $48, you can get a public hunting permit, and it opens thousands of acres of walk-in access. You can get the maps online and do your own Texas bobwhite hunt just like the big boys for $48. Publicly owned land is a little bit harder to find. There is some near the town of Tilden and the James A. Dotry Wildlife Management Area way down south. And the joy of Dotry is it's 90 minutes from Corpus Christi and the Gulf Coast, 223 days of sunshine every year. And again, for your better half, that might be a nice compromise. Another spot worth a look, the Las Palomas Wildlife Management Area. That's in the lower Rio Grande Valley, right across from Mexico. And the South Padre Island and its attractions are just a short drive away. So, all taking a look at those places where people start to talk a little bit funny the further south and the further east you go, including the Deep South, here on the Upland Nation podcast, where we're exploring snowbird destinations. Yeah. You know what I did on Thanksgiving Day? I put heat cable on the roof. And then I had to cook dinner. This is why I'm looking at all these places for this winter. In the Deep South, a little bit harder to find, but there are places outside of the pricey private quail hunting. So if you're down in that country or you're thinking about going somewhere, take a look at Florida. Quail enhancement areas have a string of one-day hunts in January and February. You just got to make a reservation. A lot of them are in the Apalachicola Wildlife Management Area, the Blackwater WMA, and the Three Lakes WMA. So pull out your map and then start digging through Google and the agency website so you can get yourself those permits for those one-day hunts. A little bit further west. God, you'd think I would know my geography. I've been down there enough. Alabama doesn't have near as much of that stuff, but my contacts down there say, yeah, you can sometimes find a last-minute private land hunt for wild quail or, of course, planted quail. But this same contact suggests waterfowling because there's a lot more of that down there. And some of those spots are the right spots to find bobwhites as well. For example, Blue Springs Wildlife Management Area. Luckily for me, I've been down to a couple of the great Orvis and Dorse lodges down there. I'm not rubbing it in. I'm just telling you that if you want a quality wild bird hunt, that's a good place to start. And no competition either. Now, some of the best accessible quail hunting in Georgia is public ground. The D-Lane Wildlife Management Area near Waynesboro is a good start. If you're staying in Savannah, you're just 2 hours away from there. And again, Savannah is one of those places everybody who's read about vampires or watched the movies or loves moss-covered trees and elegant Old South culture. Am I tripping any triggers with one of your spouses? That might be a good place to look. Might be. Yes, it might. So take a look at Savannah and then head, let's see, just a couple hours away to the D-Lane Wildlife Management Area. There's also a few birds at these places in the wintertime. Always a nice visit. Clarks Hill, Blanton Creek, Clybell, Oakey Woods, and Okmulgee wildlife management areas. The advice from locals down there is keep your expectations low. Maybe bring a fishing rod or some golf clubs as well. Yeah, we got lots more to talk about. In the second half of the podcast, we're going to cover all the hunting hacks that I've cobbled together in the last few days from my own experience with folks who are much smarter than me. So keep it tuned right here. My name is Scott Linden. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. Hold still for a minute because I've got a lot more to talk about that pays the bills around here. And speaking of that, working on a video for Dr. Tim, Dr. Tim's Performance Dog Food. Learn more at drtims.com. I sure learned a lot. I've been using that food, one version of it or another. He's got about a dozen different formulations just for dogs, and that's not even counting cats. But don't get me started on that subject. What I learned that I want to share with you is something that we don't really look at quite as carefully as we should, and that is, while a good protein ratio is important, and most of us start at about 30%, the quality of the protein is what's critical. The reason being, a dog can only process protein, so much protein, so quickly. If you want them to metabolize all the good stuff in the protein, then you want an animal protein source. Fish, meat of one sort or another, meat meal. All those things are good stuff, as opposed to some of the other things that some makers put in theirs, plant-based materials of various sorts, and we won't go there, but because it's very complicated. But I trust Dr. Tim. He's a sled dog racer, a veterinarian, and then he makes websites and food for his dogs, and it is good food. Flick will attest to that. The other nice thing about Dr. Tim's dog food is you can trace every ingredient on his website. He'll tell you where the salmon came from, where the beef is coming from, where every single vitamin and mineral is coming from. And that's the kind of, security and safety you want. Learn more at drtims.com. Your first order, you'll get 30% off. Just use the code Upland Nation. And yes, I do wear them in the field. Esp Electronic Earplugs. It stands for Electronic Shooters Protection. Learn more about them at espamerica.com. I wear them in the field, number one, because they're very comfortable. You can barely tell you're wearing them because they're custom fit. The other joy of custom fitting is they stay in. When you're climbing, running, chasing after a dog, all those things that you do in the field on a hunt, yeah, they're still there when you end the day. And your hearing is too. There's a 30-day money-back trial. Get fitted locally. Go to the dealer locator page, type in your address, and find somebody nearby who will take care of the fitting for you at no additional charge. And then Jack Homa and his folks will make you those custom electronic earplugs. Try them for 30 days. See if they're not the best thing that ever happened to you and your ears. All right, the Handle It segment. I apologize, but one more time, let's talk about your dog's feet. Maybe it's because so many people are talking about it online, and I get this question a lot anyway, but this time of year, and this year in particular, it strikes me as a more common issue. Dogs who have pads that are peeling, they're cut, they're scraped, they're just failing in one way or another. Talked about all the other things you can do in terms of caring for those pads, keeping them supple, not dried out like a callus. If you're a guitarist, you know what I mean, or if you work with your hands a lot, that is the worst thing you want, is that dried out, horny, kind of hard skin on your dog's pads. But no matter what you did before, if you feel the need for some reason to boot your dogs in the field, there's all sorts of solutions out there, and I keep coming back to this one, and it's still the most read blog post on my finebirdhuntingspots.com website. Duct tape. Yeah, you can do all sorts of things with it, but here are the joys of duct tape. It's cheap. When you lose one, you don't get mad. And you can carry a season's worth of dog boots on one roll in your hunting vest. The trick is doing it right. Some people will put a little baby sock on their dog's foot before they do all this. Some people will wrap part of the foot or the leg with Coflex or vet wrap. Doesn't matter with Flick. I just use duct tape, period. It's going to pull out a little bit of hair when you take it off, but most of the time they'll fall off anyway. Peel off 2 feet of duct tape, lay it sticky side up, put your dog's foot right in the middle and have him step on it. And then just wrap it Roman sandal style, crisscross, nice and loose from there all the way up, and ideally over on the front legs, over that thumb, if you will. They call it a tarsal pad, I think. That'll keep it on a little bit better. In the back, it's a little bit harder, but again, if it falls off, who cares? You want to be careful. You want to wrap loosely. And you want to check your dog's foot after a few minutes. Go touch the pads that you could still feel. Make sure they're not cold. You've cut off the circulation then, so be very careful about that. Yeah, duct tape does have a light side and a dark side, just like the Force. And in this case, we love it for its light side. Okay, so hunter hacks. One of those things that, you know, I am always looking for better ways to do the things that I do. And while I may not be the smartest guy, the sharpest knife in the drawer, the brightest bulb in the ceiling, I am a pretty good note taker and I am a good question asker. And those are important things when you write a lot like I do. So let's talk about some of the things I've learned the hard way so that you don't have to. Teach your dog to drink from a Boda. You know what I mean? Boda bag, the wine skin that shoots the little stream of fluid out. Or you can get the modern equivalent. There's a whole bunch of them, from the kind that we used to use on our bikes to the camelbacks with the drinking tube and all of that. Before your next hunting trip, teach your dog to drink from that. You can both use one water source. You don't have to carry a bowl into the field and have it take up room in your vest, for example. And believe it or not, there's very little waste. The other thing I like about these is on a hot day, you can literally wet your dog down pretty easily without wasting a lot of water. Boda bag or the equivalent. The problem with a Boda, well, with all of them, but a Boda in particular, is if you leave it in the truck overnight, it will freeze in some places. And that generally blows it apart. So bring it inside with you on cold nights. All right, so the whole first half of the Upland Nation podcast was about places to go in the wintertime. I got a few more for you here, just in case, because these are kind of like the ones, if you're looking for something else to chase, whether it's because you're putting together a bucket list or something else obsessive like that. Remember, there's a whole bunch of public land waterfowling and pheasant hunting at the Sunny Bono Salton Sea National Wildlife Refuge in California. Louisiana, I have a good friend down there who used to guide woodcock hunters in Louisiana. And South Texas, of course, on the Gulf Coast, there's lots of waterfowling. And if you get down into the lower Rio Grande Valley, hunt the chachalaca. Kind of a road runner, but I'm sure it tastes a little bit better than them. Anyway, some alternate species, if you will. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast, trying to help you kind of get around and get along a little bit better here. Hunting hacks. If you're missing a lot of birds, I learned this from my first shooting instructor, and I've relearned it maybe a couple thousand times since. You wear a hat. Most likely that hat brim is getting in the way of your good shooting. If it's too low on your forehead, just to kind of visualize if you can, if it's low on your forehead, you shoulder your gun. To see the rising bird, you're going to lift your head up so that your hat brim is not in the way. Instead of that, which means you'll shoot, come on, help you guys. That means you shoot under the bird. Yeah, if my geometry is right. Anyway, you miss the birds because you've lifted your head off the stock, just enough to throw off the geometry of the back sight, which is your eye, and the front sight, which is basically the end of the gun, the muzzle. All right, so turn your hat around, take it off, or at least push it back before you mount your gun. If you got a pointing dog, that's a little bit easier, but you know what I mean. All right, shoot better. Believe me, it's the one simple thing you can do that can improve your shooting dramatically in one fell swoop. All right, so you're hunting with a friend and your friend's dog, and that dog pointed, held steady, and is now out on the retrieve. Most dogs generally will only serve one master. If you want to make that simpler and easier on the dog, as that dog is coming back on the retrieve, turn your back to him. Then he only has one face to lock in on, and that'll be his master's, and that's critical if you want a flawless retrieve. So help out your dogs, your friend and your friend's dog. Turn your back. I could do in fact, I think I will. I'll do a whole magazine story someday on lost dogs and finding them and looking for them and all of that. Here are some things that I've had to use in the past. If you don't have your GPS collar and you can't find your dog, I'll never forget this one, looking into the next canyon and seeing all the birds flying off left and right and in between. That was a pretty good indicator, but if you can't see that, you can usually see a little dust cloud most of the year. If there's another dog nearby or you're a horseback, they'll look right at the direction they're hearing your dog running around, and their hearing is so much better than yours, it works extremely well. So, can't find them? Look for those things, cross your fingers, head for them, recharge your GPS collar. Good luck. All right, now I've had this discussion a few times online, and I'm convinced even more now, and in fact, I'm convinced many things will do this, including these dang face masks we all have to wear now. I heard some horror stories at a NAVDA hunt test a couple weeks ago, and the theory behind these two judges is those face masks on strangers, on the judges, for example, or the gallery, or the gunners for that matter, freaked out the dog. The dog, dogs, they can't talk. They base a lot of their decision making on body language, their hearing, their sense of smell, of course. But when they can't see all of your face, they don't quite know what to do. And that's one way to confuse them. Face masks, but I've had the discussion over the years with sunglasses. Same thing. Dog can't see your eyes. They are the window to your soul and to his as well. If he can't see him, he doesn't quite know what to do. If nothing else, take them off when you're given a command. He sees it's you. He sees where to go if you're calling him in, for example. Worth a thought, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. All right, so you're doctoring your dog. He's got a cut somewhere. You put all the medicine on, whether it's just an antibiotic or it's something more important than that. And the moment you turn your back, he's licking it all off. Well, the good news is my veterinarian tells me if you can keep that antibiotic on his wound for 10 minutes, it's done its job. Of course, if you can bandage it, all the better. And he doesn't tear off the bandage, that is. But if nothing else, you can always do this. Put that medicine wherever it needs to go. Then put something tastier. Peanut butter. Grease of some, cooking grease of some sort. On another part of his body so that he focuses on that instead of on the medication. When I was in the music business, I learned this the hard way. In some bands, some organizations, we had to memorize music. Now, not always. You're playing a jazz job, big jazz group, you didn't have to. You had a music stand that had all the charts in front of you. Playing classical music, most of the time you didn't have to, but you were doing a solo job. Most of the time you had to memorize. Well, what I learned there holds true for training a dog as well. Let's say you have a complex command. You want that dog to go race out, pick up a bird, and bring it back. Well, that's really about 5 steps. Teach it in reverse order. We always learned the last part of a piece of music first, then the second to last and the last, then the third to last, the second to last, and the last. So by the time you get to the first part, whether it's training a dog or learning a hard piece of music, the rest of it's downhill. Your dog will appreciate it, and so will you. If you use hand signals when you're working with your dog, handling that dog in the field, get it? Yeah, pardon the pun. Sometimes motion will help. Dogs see moving objects way better than they see stationary objects. So think about that. He's sleeping in the front yard and everything's fine. The chipmunk's on the other side of the yard stealing all your bird feed from under the feeder. Everybody's relaxed until that chipmunk runs. Then the dog is up and Katie bar the door. Well, use that to your advantage when you're handling a dog in the field with hand signals. A moving hand or a moving arm will help him better see and understand what you really want him to do. So I was expounding on that theory to a pro trainer many years ago, and he said, well, of course that's true. I said, oh, I thought I had an original idea. He said, well, yeah, most people don't know it, but I do. And I use that even with a puppy. I'll lean over, and when I call a puppy to me, I make an open and closing fist motion down at puppy eye level, and he is intrigued enough with that to come over every time I call him. Of course, that's the start of a great retrieving training session as well. Learned it again last week, 3,400 feet up above one of the well-known trout streams here in the inland Northwest. Just cold enough to where every time I exhaled, my shooting glasses fogged over. Simple solution, don't wear them, but I can't do that. I need that patch on my left eye so that I can shoot right-handed. So I turn my hat around. If the cap brim is in the back, it doesn't allow that exhaled air to pool up under the cap brim and then settle on your eyeglasses. Works for me. I'm Scott Linden. You're listening to the podcast, Upland Nation. Thank you for listening. Lots more to talk about here. Hunter hacks is the theme right now. And if you've got your own, I'd love to share that. I'd love for you to share them with us. How's that? And we will do this again at some point in the future with all of your ideas as well. Okay, so what are some of the things you must bring on every hunt? This is another one that everybody has their own thoughts, but here are a few things that maybe you didn't think of before. I like to bring that boot dryer. You know, there's a million kinds. It doesn't matter, but it's the right way to dry out your boots. Don't put them next to the fire. Don't put them over a heater vent. Don't put them on a heater. Buy yourself one of those boot dryers and use it. A multi-tool. Yeah, I still carry the one Tim Leatherman gave me a long time ago at a SHOT Show. A lawn chair. Now, how many times have you regretted pulling up a stump instead of having a nice lawn chair to sit on over around the campfire or just setting out after your hunt? Sure beats a tailgate. I always bring Ziploc plastic bags, a million uses for them, including finding mushrooms and blackberries. Tie out steak, add that to the list. A headlamp, and there is nothing could be finer than to put on moccasins and get shed of those musty, damp hunting boots at the end of the day. I'm more relaxed just talking about it. Oh my, there's a million of them out there. I would love to share all of them, but then I wouldn't be able to write the next edition of my book, so I'm not going to. And I want to hear yours instead. So drop me a note at the Facebook page, Wing Shooting USA Facebook page, or the Upland Nation Facebook page, and I'll start compiling your list, and we'll go from there. In the meanwhile, I've still got our reader poll coming up. And it will be, I think, a little bit eye-opening to you. But first, a couple brief messages. The Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by my good friends Joe and Manning Exum at Happy Jack Dog Care Products. Remedies for everything for your dog's skin, coat, pads, parasites, fleas, and ticks. Learn all about what they've got to offer you and me at Happy Jack Inc. HappyJackInc.com and Gunner.com. Yes, they've gone away from Gunner Kennels because there's so many other things they have these days, including fans, tie-down straps, kennel pads, all-weather kits, nameplates. Oh, yeah, and dog kennels. Learn all about what they have for you to protect your most valuable hunting partner at Gunner.com. There's financing. There's free delivery. Try the vehicle fit guide or crowdsource your fit based on other people with the same kind, the same age, the same breed of dog. Learn all about it at gunner.com. Okay, so every week in the Upland Nation Insights e-newsletter, I ask you a question and then you respond. Thank you for those of you who do. Last week it was, how is your season going so far? The choices: I'm seeing more birds, I'm seeing fewer birds, and I'm seeing about the same number of birds. Well, yeah, I remember before the season started how optimistic everybody was. And then the reports started rolling in and they were all not quite as optimistic and rosy as they were. But almost 40% of you say you are seeing more birds. So I'm jealous. I'm grateful. I'm glad for you. Now just send me the latitude and longitude and maybe I can answer my own reader poll next. 34% of you are seeing fewer birds and about 26% of you are seeing the same number as last year. If you'd like to be a part of the reader poll every week, get the e-newsletter. It's called the Upland Nation Insights, and all sorts of useful stuff there. Hopefully there's something in every week's issue that you can use that weekend, and that's the whole idea. That's why I call it the Weekend Essentials in the subject line. Sign up at findbirdhuntingspots.com, take the poll, and maybe learn something as well. All right, a quick reminder before we go. DogEnergyBar.com now's the time of year when it will come in real handy. Your dog can't drink a Red Bull, but he can sure have a little bit of Dog Energy Bar right there in the field. It won't slow him down. In fact, it's about the best, fastest metabolizing energy source you can find. All food grade ingredients tested and used every day in the high Arctic by the Danish Army sled dog patrols in Greenland. Yeah, if they're using it, must work pretty darn good. The Upland Nation podcast is also brought to you by ESPAmerica.com. Custom-fitted electronic earplugs, a variety of prices. Learn more at ESPAmerica.com. That's all I got for you today. I'm glad you could stick with me. Thank you. Hope you learned something. Please tell your friends. Please give us a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you get your podcast. If you'd like to talk between now and next week, check the Wing Shooting USA or the Upland Nation Facebook pages. My quote this week comes from author Agnes Replier. She says, "Our dogs will love and admire the meanest of us and feed our colossal vanity with their uncritical homage." Amen to that, Agnes. Appreciate your listening. I'm Scott Linden. Until next week, I'll see you in the field.